So, you've mentioned obviously a bad and awful experience in your words that you had as a group that helped you to become stronger, to evolve. And this is a question that I really like to talk about with successful musicians of any sort. Do you have a specific moment a moment in mind when like the energy of the moment was so strong and that made you understand that you are succeeding in what you want to achieve? Like, is there a specific moment when you said to yourself, well, I've done it, everything that I've dreamed of, it's happening right now and I couldn't be happier, you know?
Yeah, I think so. There have been several of those particular moments, of
Mhm.
those milestones along the way. But I remember getting a call. We were in Poland, I think, in the end of 2017. Getting a call, uh, and my mom's crying, or just realizing that it's like we had just been nominated for 3 Grammys, and that moment we were kind of halfway out of it because it was the beginning of the morning over there for us, and it's a different time in the States, and having that moment, having it be so special for um my parents, my personal family, friends you haven't talked to forever, and it's like it is kind of like a coming of age type of achievement to be Grammy nominated. These songs that you believe in, that you think that they're the best songs in the world or whatever. This song's gonna be so special, and then to have this worldwide group like give you that title, nominate you is amazing. That headlining certain shows, just even in our hometown or being at festivals overseas and playing Budokan in Japan. Um, all of these little moments kind of add up. And when you take a step back, you have to remind yourself to do that. You really can soak it in and be grateful and just, wow, like we did it. I did it. This is, and I'm living it. And now the name of the game is enjoy it. It's you're not necessarily working to quote unquote make it. It's just you're just living your life and enjoying every aspect of it. And uh, I don't know. I'm very grateful for everything that's happened, and very stoked to continue the journey and kind of see what's next. You know.
That's amazing. And do you do you feel do you experience any sort of challenges when it comes to motivating yourself to keep creating music and do what you do? Because obviously when you're an up and coming band and you have this goal in front of you and you know what you want to achieve and you know what you need to do, and obviously you're fully motivated to do so, but I guess it gets difficult to, once you achieve everything that you want to achieve, then what's next? What's the power behind your actions? And I'm interested to hear what's the thought process with you on that.
Right. Man, I'd say fortunately with me, I sometimes inspiration will come at a certain time, and I need to kind of stop what I'm doing and focus on that and kind of like see it through,
Mhm.
whether it be a lyric or a song instrumentally. But a lot of the times I find that if I just sit down and give myself an hour and say I'm gonna write, then I'm gonna write. I don't know. That's been my process, and
Mhm.
I guess I'm not afraid, knock on wood, of running out of ideas.
Mhm.
Or I don't know. You just got to keep going and keep growing. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Mhm.
So as long as I'm playing and kind of continuing this journey of songwriting, more ideas will pop up, whether it is for nothing more, or I don't know whatever is next in the future, after this or whatever.
So another thing that I'm interested to hear, you've mentioned inspiration and just finding ways to create. What like what usually would you say is the thing or the activity that inspires you the most? Is it music? Is it, literature, movies, family? Why have you noticed a certain pattern or tendency in terms of things that, make you motivated to create?
Yeah, I was just saying, I think it's the same for everybody. You see a good show or a movie or read a good book, and there's something that pops out at you, and it's like, oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's a line. I better write this down, or it's like think about doing some more research on this concept.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like all four of us in the band are kind of moved by those things, something we see or hear, from other bands or, even lecturers like Alan Watts or other philosophers.
Mm-hmm.
We're just kind of constantly excited to kind of keep learning from all of that stuff.
I mean, I'm very curious about that as well. And honestly, I've tried to research what sort of books and authors and philosophers are motivating you in one way or another. But I've always failed to find some sort of information about that. So I would love for you to tell me, like, if you have favorite authors, favorite books, any sort of artists in general that have influenced you in one way or another.
Yeah, with other philosophers or spiritual teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm a big I'm blanking on his name right now. Writes The Power of Now.
Yeah.
I can't even. Eckhart Tolle. Yeah. He's amazing. And actually, on this current record on Spirits, there's a lot of his concepts, which even he'll tell you they aren't his concepts.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that everybody has the ability to tap into, and realizing you are not your problem, you are not your pain, and separating yourself from that, not living in the past or living in the future, but just being and being in now. And when you realize that, and you can kind of detach from what's going on, it's life changing, and it's so helpful, to do that often and try and get into that meditative state, to not, to pull yourself out of the anxieties and stress of the world. That guy's awesome. I love the book The Giver, and I'm blanking on her name. That author, Brene Brown's awesome. My wife got me into some of her books. I'm reading this book right now about empaths and being empathic. That's really interesting and has sparked a lot of curiosity, just to kind of continue learning. And just it's kind of going into like concepts of like finding there are different levels of empaths, basically people that are just that aware and sensitive to sensing auras and other people's feelings, just to where they're at, and maybe why the world is overwhelming to them, or why they can sense this uneasiness in a room, and kind of how on point that often is. That's really interesting to me. I consider myself an empathetic person. I wouldn't say like super aware or anything, but all that stuff's exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, the whole the whole so-called personal development sphere is very interesting to me as well, considering that I think it's and I would be curious to hear whether this applies to you as well. But obviously, personally, I'm in a state that I acknowledge the need to modify some of my instincts in terms of perceiving the world around me and just controlling my emotions and just understanding what's happening in my brain objectively, you know.
Yeah.
So would you say like these are topics that apply to you, and would you say that, you know, you're like, you understand the importance of actually working on yourself and just appreciating and understanding the way that you think?
Absolutely. And I feel like I can speak for everyone in the band, that we all kind of go through things, and, you know, it's like you can only, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result.
Different result, yeah.
And yeah, and that's a big thing in life, to, you know, for you to welcome change and be open to change when something doesn't work or a way of thinking is obsolete. You have to morph, and you have to figure out a way around it to continue your life and continue growing and learning and yeah, and all of those things. I definitely say we're all big advocates of working on ourselves and sharpening ourselves, and that probably has to do with, you know, how we grew up. That is a great aspect of Christianity, I would say. I don't, you know, align myself with a lot of that anymore, but I think there are some core values and some key elements that it taught in all of our kind of upbringings, that, you know, working on yourself is important. You know, a better you, if you want to, you know, change the world, change yourself. You know, Gandhi said it best, you know, and we all want a better world. And we all hate running into somebody that's just a dick or, you know, rude or inconsiderate. So don't be that person. You know, that's really important to us.
It's such a, you know, sometimes it's very, I would say, relieving for me to speak with like-minded individuals such as yourself, because I also see this as such a big problem, because people nowadays are so self-centered and sort of entitled, but at the same time, no one really wants to take responsibility for the way that they affect the people around them and the impact that they have on society or on the world in general, you know. And it's great to hear that, you know, there are people that sort of share my point of view on that, because I think it's that's very important, especially nowadays.
You're totally right, and it is sad to, you know, have those people in your life that you just you don't get it, you know, and it's just baffling that they can be so selfish and so inconsiderate. But I have to remind myself often that it's like, man, I can't change them. I don't have control over them, and I need to stop letting that affect me. You know, people are going to be people, and sometimes that happens. I have my own problems for sure too, to where I can be selfish and self-centered, and I'm no better, you know. So it's I completely hear you there.
Yeah, I guess the important thing is to actually self-assess that and, you know, understand this rather than just being negligent towards it, which is, I guess, the problem with many people, without wanting to, you know, sound pretentious or, you know, expressing myself as better than anyone. But, you know, as an observation, that seems to be the case.